Hello and welcome to my designer commentary video. Today we are looking at my film poster for the Iron Lady. Before we go into the design elements, let's take a brief look at Margaret Thatcher's history. She was the first woman Prime Minister in Britain and was in office from 1979 to 1990. She was also the leader of the Conservative Party. Let's just say she wasn't the most popular person ever, but more of that later. She started her political career at a very young age and began making her way forward to become MP of her local county. In 1959, she became the Conservative MP for Finchley. One of the things she is most known for is taking away free milk for schoolchildren, meaning that schools would have to pay for it themselves. In her eyes, this was good as the government weren't spending as much, but it wasn't too popular with schools or parents. The main thing she is known for is the vastly unpopular poll tax, which means that all adults pay a set amount of tax regardless of their income. Obviously, people with low income weren't too happy about this. The result of this was the poll tax riots. On the 31st of March 1990, people took to the streets of London to protest against the poll tax, with the main point of interest being Trafalgar Square. Riot police were there to ensure everything went smoothly, and it was, until the police began to corner groups which fueled tension, and then a reported police charge added to the anger of the crowd, who then began to attack riot vans. As the police tried to disperse people, this led to looting and fires in places such as Covent Garden and the West End. This continued until around 7 at night. Here is a short extract from a news broadcast showing some of the events of that day. Crazy stuff. Anyway, back to the film poster. Moving on to yet another conflict is the Falklands. The Falklands War was a 10-week war between the UK and Argentina. Argentina had invaded the Falkland Islands, which had belonged to the UK. The UK sent troops over to reclaim the land. Although neither country declared war, the conflict took just over 900 lives. Now, she wasn't that popular, but she was strong. Because of this trait, a Soviet journalist named her the Iron Lady, which she swiftly adopted. Now, onto the design. So this is my final poster. It contains a fist crushing a carton of milk with a rusty and burnt out Union Jack in the background. I wanted to give it a communist feel, so I feel the fist, the font and the colour scheme match this perfectly. I based the film poster design on the famous anti-war artist Shepard Fairey. He is famous for several posters such as the Make Art Not War poster and the Obama campaign poster Hope. His designs are often in a propaganda style and therefore I chose to do mine similar. The main thing from Thatcher's life I chose to design about was the milk snatcher part, so I decided to take the propaganda side of Fairey's work and apply it to mine. In order to get this fist, I found an image of a Soviet style fist, imported it into Illustrator and painstakingly traced around it using the pen tool. Once this had been achieved, I filled in all the main and shadow areas with the correct colours to give it that communist feel. The idea of this part of the poster is to convey the strong hold that Thatcher had in this country, whilst linking to small beginnings with the fist crushing the carton. Once I created these elements, I was able to continue and make the background. During her reign, some people said that she had ruined this country. My plan is to use this to my advantage by having a rusted and burnt looking Union Jack. In order to do this, I opened up Photoshop and imported the Union Jack in. The first thing that came to mind was the clouds effect. To give these the burnt effect, I repeated the effect to give the style that worked. Then I used an eraser with a heavy feather to erase near the edges so they didn't have much of a rough edge. I then created 3 copies of it and placed them around the border of the Union Jack. I then created a clipping mask and applied a colour balance effect to both layers. I increased the reds the most and slightly raised the green and the blue. This gave a slightly purple hint to it. This then made the clouds seem slightly orange in colour when having a rust texture applied to it later on. The rust texture is a pretty generic rust texture, but it gives the desired look. I imported it as a layer above everything else and changed the blending mode to multiply. This mixed the rust with the Union Jack and the clouds, and the colour balance gave the clouds more of a colour. The result so far was a pretty old and damaged Union Jack. The next step was to make the flag look darker around the edges. To do this, I added a radial gradient of black to white and put the blending mode to overlay, so it made the edges of the flag really dark and barely visible. When I imported the fist and carton into Photoshop, I added the rust texture onto it to give it a darker and redder feel to it. Then lowered the brightness slightly and maxed out the contrast. I then added the text for the film title and the slogan, "Milk First, Britain Second," linking to the small beginnings idea. The font I used is called Molot, as it looks like a Russian style font since it was a Russian who named her the Iron Lady. Overall, my film poster was portraying a negative side of Thatcher, as I'm portraying that she held a strong grip over Britain and creating initiatives that may seem small but can lead to a damaged country. Thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed.